Did you know that there exists a country where a man can dissolve his marriage with just 3 words, spoken even over the phone? No notarization, no need for official documents, no face-to-face meetings, and surprisingly, no requirement to specify any reason for the divorce. In the same place, extravagant wedding celebrations filled with excessive amounts of food are prohibited, and newlyweds could even find themselves under arrest for violating this rule. And imagine, I could tell you that crying at a funeral might be punishable by law. It sounds almost unbelievable, but this country truly exists. It is Tajikistan, a remote, mountainous country on the fringes of the world's awareness, almost forgotten by many. Yet, its reality has the power to deeply astonish anyone willing to look beyond the surface. Today, together with Bellamond, we are embarking on a journey to one of the most secretive nations in Central Asia, an intriguing place that remains largely hidden from the global eye. Let's begin by exploring its location and geographical features. When we think about Asia, names like China, Japan, and India immediately come to mind. If the focus narrows to Central Asia, the names that typically surface are Afghanistan, Pakistan, or perhaps familiar countries such as Turkmenistan. But what about Tajikistan? Perhaps you've never heard of it, or if you have, it was only in passing, without really understanding what makes this country unique. That's why our journey starts with finding this nearly clandestine land on the map. Tajikistan is a former Soviet republic situated right at the very heart of Central Asia. It shares borders with Afghanistan to the south, Uzbekistan on the west, Kyrgyzstan to the north, and China to the east. Essentially, it is tightly squeezed between regional powers, constant conflicts, and towering mountain ranges. And what are these mountains like? Over 90% of the country's territory is covered by rugged, high-altitude peaks. The most spectacular among them is the Pamir, often called the roof of the world, where some of Asia's highest summits soar above 7,000 meters. Add to that a relatively small land area of just over 140,000 square kilometers, less than half the size of Spain, and an extreme climate, which varies from scorching heat at lower elevations to freezing cold in the highlands. What does all this add up to? An isolated, almost inaccessible country, yet one filled with breathtaking landscapes and stories unknown to most of the world. It is precisely here that our journey begins. Now, let's turn to its history. Long before Tajikistan became a remote, mountainous nation, it was home to some of the most powerful civilizations in world history. For centuries, this land served as a vital waypoint along the legendary Silk Road, the grand network of trade routes connecting east and west. From Chinese caravans and Middle Eastern merchants to conquerors from Central Asia and even Alexander the Great himself during his campaigns, these lands have witnessed countless travelers and armies crossing through. Throughout its long history, the territory of modern Tajikistan was governed by powerful neighbors. First, it was under Persian influence, then later part of medieval Islamic states in Central Asia, such as the Samanid Empire, which brought a golden age of art, science, and literature to the region. Later, the land was subjected to Mongol invasions led by Genghis Khan, which devastated everything in their path. This rich and tumultuous past has left an indelible mark on Tajikistan, shaping its cultural identity and historical significance, even as it remains one of the most secluded and less explored corners of the world. Finally, there are the Russians, who in the 19th century annexed this region and transformed it into a Soviet republic. For nearly a century, this territory was effectively governed by foreign powers, with its sovereignty often questioned and debated. At times, it was regarded as a colony, other times as a province within a larger empire, but true independence only arrived in 1991, coinciding with the dissolution of the Soviet Union. However, this newfound freedom did not bring immediate joy. Instead, it was accompanied by profound pain and upheaval. Within the very next year, the nation plunged into a brutal civil war that would last for 5 years, claiming tens of thousands of lives and devastating what remained of its fragile economy. Since those tumultuous times, Tajikistan has been engaged in a long and arduous struggle to rebuild itself, often battling persistent poverty that still casts a heavy shadow over the land. A significant portion of its population lives abroad, seeking better opportunities elsewhere, while political power remains concentrated in the hands of the same president, who has held office continuously since 1992. This story is one of domination, resistance, and collective forgetfulness, a narrative of a country that has spent much of its existence under foreign rule and is only now trying to understand its own identity and determine its future direction. Moving on to the third aspect, which encompasses the people, their religions, and their beliefs. Today, the population of Tajikistan exceeds 10 million individuals. The majority are ethnic Tajiks, but the country's demographic mosaic also includes Uzbeks from neighboring Uzbekistan, Russians from the former Soviet states, and Kyrgyz from nearby Kyrgyzstan. In recent years, thousands of Afghans have crossed the borders seeking refuge, adding further layers to the nation's diverse cultural fabric. Each community brings its own unique traditions, culinary practices, and even speech patterns, enriching the social landscape. Despite this diversity, most communities coexist peacefully, especially in remote mountainous areas where cultural boundaries tend to blend more seamlessly. The dominant religion is Sunni Islam, which influences many aspects of daily life. However, despite the Islamic heritage, many Tajiks continue to uphold customs and traditions rooted in ancient times. For example, they celebrate Nowruz, the Persian New Year, welcoming spring with dance, special dishes, and rituals connected to nature. People make vows at sacred sites high in the mountains, wear amulets to ward off evil eye, and villages still preserve the practices of traditional healers. Essentially, faith in Tajikistan extends beyond the walls of mosques. It resides in everyday life, in stories passed down through generations, protective gestures, and communal family meals. It is a living, breathing blend of religion, tradition, and collective memory, an existence that seems suspended between two worlds. One foot rests in the ancient Persian cultural sphere, while the other remains rooted in the legacy of Soviet communism. Perhaps, it is precisely this duality that makes Tajikistan so uniquely captivating. Speaking of its distinctive cuisine, it is impossible to truly understand Tajikistan without delving into its culinary traditions. Moving on to the fourth point, food. In Tajik culture, food is synonymous with hospitality and warmth. Every gathering revolves around the table, or more accurately, the floor. Most homes lack tables and chairs. Instead, the meal is laid out on a dastarhan, a cloth spread directly on the ground, where everyone sits together in accordance with age-old customs. The meal begins with appetizers, dried fruits, nuts, and slices of traditional bread called kolva. Next comes the soup, followed by meat dishes, and finally the most anticipated dish of all, plov, also known locally as ash. This is a hearty rice dish cooked with carrots, tender pieces of lamb, and a generous amount of oil, all prepared in a large kazan, a traditional cast iron pot, over an open flame. Sometimes, the plov is enriched with chickpeas, dried fruits, or even whole heads of garlic, adding layers of flavor. What makes it truly remarkable is the communal way it is eaten. Everyone shares from the same large dish, either using a big spoon or, in rural traditions, with their hands. This practice not only emphasizes unity and sharing but also reflects the deep-rooted hospitality that pervades Tajik culture. Through these culinary traditions, Tajikistan's warmth and generosity are vividly conveyed, revealing much about its people's way of life and their enduring bonds of community. In any discussion about the fundamental elements that define a culture's daily life and social fabric, one particular item stands out as absolutely indispensable: bread. This simple yet vital component of every meal, often shaped into a round, flat loaf baked in traditional clay ovens, holds a revered place in the hearts and customs of the people. Its presence at the table is not merely about sustenance. It is deeply intertwined with respect, tradition, and a sense of community. Without bread, the entire ambiance of a meal feels incomplete, almost as if the table itself lacks essence. You might serve rice, meat, or fresh fruits, delicious, colorful, and nourishing, but if bread is absent, many would instinctively feel that the meal is lacking, that something crucial is missing. To say, "there is nothing to eat," becomes almost literal in such a context, emphasizing just how profoundly bread symbolizes hospitality and abundance. The reverence for bread here borders on the sacred. It is treated with a level of respect that is rare elsewhere. For example, if a loaf accidentally falls to the ground, it is not casually discarded or ignored. Instead, it is carefully placed aside, on a wall, on the roof, or on a stone, so that birds or stray dogs can consume it. This act reflects a belief that bread, as a gift from nature and a symbol of life, must not be wasted or dishonored. Furthermore, there exists a strict taboo: a flatbread must never be placed upside down. Such an act is considered to bring misfortune, and only another loaf can be placed underneath to restore harmony. Violating this rule is viewed as a sign of disrespect, not just to the bread but to the household and its traditions. These customs serve as a reminder that respect for bread is also a reflection of respect for the home and the community's spiritual well-being. Beyond bread, there exists a traditional dish known as kurutop, a hearty and comforting soup that embodies the rich culinary culture of the region. It is made from a flavorful broth infused with tiny, salted, dried cheese balls that dissolve into the water, creating a savory base. This broth is poured over pieces of flaky, layered pastry, often complemented by fried onions and vegetables, though without meat, resulting in a dish that offers a complex texture, a rich aroma, and a deep, satisfying flavor. It is a dish designed to bring people together, with everything placed at the center of the table in a communal circle. In the summer months, the markets brim with an abundance of fresh fruits, juicy melons, vibrant pomegranates, sweet apricots, plump grapes, and fragrant figs, all of which are natural, affordable, and readily accessible. These fruits are typically enjoyed alongside a cup of green tea, which has become almost an extension of a Tajik person's body. Served hot and unsweetened in small, handleless cups, this tea is suitable for any time of day, at breakfast, during midday, or after dinner. Always, the tea is waiting, ready to warm and refresh. The tea house, or chaykhana, functions as the heartbeat of social life in the city. It is a place where people gather, sit comfortably on the floor, and engage in lively conversations, sharing stories and experiences. Here, bread is broken, and tea is sipped, symbolizing unity, respect, and a sense of belonging. In Tajikistan, food transcends mere nourishment. It becomes a ritual of fellowship, a gesture of mutual respect, and an affirmation of community ties. It is in these shared moments that the essence of Tajik culture reveals itself, through simple acts that carry deep significance. Moving beyond the culinary sphere, the next aspect of Tajik life that vividly illustrates their societal values is the realm of customs, traditions, and unwritten rules, particularly those surrounding marriage. After a meal, the social customs and traditions come to the forefront, revealing the true heart of the people. These traditions are not mere formalities but are deeply rooted in the collective identity of Tajik society, shaping everything from how tea is served to the invisible codes that govern married life. Among these, the most significant event remains the wedding, an occasion of unparalleled importance that unites families and communities in celebration. In rural areas, many young people still enter into marriage at a relatively early age, often around 15 years old, despite the legal minimum age being set at 18. Marriages are typically arranged through family agreements, pork, with the groom's family paying a dowry, or kalam, directly to the bride's relatives. This sum usually covers the expenses of the wedding itself, symbolizing a gesture of goodwill and commitment. Weddings in Tajik culture are grand affairs, often marked by abundant food, traditional dances, and guests coming from nearby villages and beyond. These celebrations serve as a testament to the importance placed on communal bonds and cultural continuity. While recent years have seen efforts to curb some of the excesses through higher authorities' regulations, in many traditional societies, a woman gradually becomes almost a permanent presence within her husband's household, often under constant watchful eyes. She transitions from being a wife to a figure who is frequently monitored and kept under close supervision, her movements and interactions carefully scrutinized. This change can feel like a subtle yet relentless transformation, where her role is confined within the boundaries set by societal expectations and family authority. On the other hand, if a marriage does not work out, the situation for the man tends to be much simpler and less complicated. In such cases, dissolving the union often requires only a straightforward verbal declaration of divorce, traditionally known as talaq, which can be uttered 3 times, sometimes even over the phone, after which he is legally and socially considered free from the marriage. This process, although seemingly simple, reflects a stark contrast to the long, arduous, and often emotionally taxing divorce proceedings that women must endure in many societies. For women, divorce frequently becomes a prolonged ordeal, fraught with social stigma and personal hardship. They are often blamed for the failure of the marriage, and their social standing can suffer significantly. Many women find themselves pushed to the margins of their communities, marginalized and sometimes even ostracized, as they grapple with the emotional toll and societal condemnation that accompany separation. The social fabric often leaves women with limited support, turning divorce into a severe test of resilience and endurance. Now, shifting our focus to a fascinating cultural detail that is difficult to forget. In Tajikistan, especially in its rural regions, the appearance of thick, unibrowed eyebrows is quite rare. Instead, the ideal aesthetic idealizes a single, broad eyebrow, what is popularly called a monobrow. Women in these areas often enhance or create the appearance of a monobrow using makeup, temporary tattoos, or even tattooed markings, viewing this feature not as odd or unattractive, but rather as a symbol of purity, femininity, and personal pride. For them, this distinctive feature is a marker of beauty and cultural identity, embodying virtues they hold dear. Speaking of pride, it is essential to understand that in Tajik society, respect and education are governed by strict and traditional norms. Men greet each other with firm handshakes, accompanied by polite and respectful words, emphasizing strength and dignity. Women, however, typically exchange kisses on the cheek, a gesture that symbolizes warmth and social bonding within the community. When food is served at gatherings, it is considered rude and disrespectful to touch the plates before the elder or the host has done so, reflecting the deep-rooted customs that emphasize respect for elders and social hierarchy. Refusing tea, sweets, or fruits offered during social occasions is almost unthinkable. Doing so would be seen as a profound breach of etiquette and an insult to the host's hospitality. In a country where tradition weighs more heavily than written laws, proper conduct is not just a matter of politeness but a vital element of social survival and cohesion. Moving on to the landscape, number 6 on our list, Tajikistan offers views so surreal that they seem to belong to another world altogether. Isolated by majestic mountains, protected by deep valleys, and often overlooked by mainstream tourist routes, this country preserves scenery that resembles the strokes of a master painter's brush. Those daring enough to venture into its remote corners discover vistas that seem almost unreal, beautiful, pristine, and untouched by modern development. The journey begins in the capital city of Dushanbe, a peaceful metropolis characterized by broad streets lined with lush greenery, offering a serene atmosphere that invites calm contemplation. Among its landmarks is the National Museum of Tajikistan, a place where the country's rich history comes alive through exhibits that span from the Stone Age remnants to relics from the Soviet era. Walking through its halls, visitors can trace the evolution of a nation that has endured countless changes yet remains resilient. Leaving the city behind, travelers are greeted by breathtaking sights. The snow-capped peaks of the Fan Mountains loom majestically, hiding the legendary 7 lakes, known locally as Sima Nohi. Each lake boasts a distinct hue, ranging from deep, velvety blue to vibrant emerald green, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that captivate the eye. Amidst these natural wonders, the name Alexander the Great surfaces in memory. Legend has it that the ancient conqueror passed through this region, and in his honor, one of the lakes was named Iskanderkul. Interestingly, in this part of the world, the name Alexander is often rendered as Iskander, and the lake bears a name that signifies Alexander's Lake. Whether this story is rooted in history or remains a local legend is uncertain, But what is undeniable is that the lake's mirror-like surface reflects the surrounding mountains with such clarity that it evokes a sense of awe, like gazing into a living painting. For those seeking to immerse themselves even more deeply into the wild, unspoiled nature of Tajikistan, the Pamir Highway, known locally as the Pamir since the year of 1992, the nation of Tajikistan has been under the steadfast rule of a single individual, Emomali Rahman. Over the decades, he has reshaped the very fabric of the country's constitutional framework, amending its fundamental laws to abolish any restrictions on presidential terms. As a result, since 2016, it has become legally possible for him to remain in power indefinitely, literally forever, if he so chooses. Today, Rahman is perceived by many as almost a sacred figure, an enduring symbol of stability and continuity. He holds titles that evoke reverence, such as the founder of peace and the guardian of national unity, and his visage is ubiquitous across the entire country. State-controlled media consistently compare him to the sun, portraying him as an eternal and benevolent source of light, warmth, and guidance. Citizens are expected to address him with formal titles like Your Excellency, emphasizing a deep-rooted reverence that borders on veneration. However, his influence extends far beyond mere titles and symbols. It infiltrates every aspect of public life and governance. In fact, power in Tajikistan has become so concentrated that it resembles a familial dynasty. His son holds the position of Speaker of the Parliament, his daughter manages the presidential administration, and his son-in-law oversees the National Bank. Many high-ranking officials and government leaders hail from the same village where Rahman was born, reinforcing the idea that political authority has become an inheritance, passed along within the same family network. This consolidation of power transforms the political landscape into what can only be described as a family affair, where dissent or questioning the system is met with harsh consequences, most notably, imprisonment. The climate of suppression is palpable. In the year of 2018, a journalist was imprisoned simply for exposing corruption, illustrating the lengths to which authorities go to silence critics. Today, even the use of overly complex language in news reports can result in fines, as authorities claim that elaborate vocabulary hinders the understanding of the populace. Believe it or not, a journalist might be fined as much as $100 for the use of rare or sophisticated words, reflecting the regime's desire to control not just actions but even the flow of information and expression. Religious practices and expressions are also subjected to strict oversight and regulation. Wearing a headscarf, growing a beard, taking children to mosques, or undertaking a pilgrimage to Mecca before reaching the age of 40 is either forbidden or heavily restricted. Even studying in Islamic schools abroad can pose risks of governmental scrutiny and interference. The list of prohibitions does not end there. Celebrating New Year's festivities is considered taboo. No loud music, no fireworks, and even Santa Claus has been declared an alien symbol incompatible with local traditions. Birthdays are to be observed solely within the confines of one's home. Public celebrations in halls or restaurants are prohibited. If authorities deem a celebration excessive or ostentatious, they are quick to impose fines. Weddings, often marked by elaborate feasts and social gatherings, are closely monitored. Police may arrive unannounced, confiscate food, and accuse the family of excessive spending or showy displays of wealth. Such incidents are not rare, they are disturbingly commonplace. Imagine a typical wedding scenario. A family prepares a modest celebration for their daughter's marriage. Suddenly, government officials arrive uninvited, seize the food, and reprimand the family for what they label as wastefulness. This rigid oversight extends even into moments of mourning. In the year of 2017, authorities banned loud crying, noisy funeral processions, and exaggerated gestures at funerals, insisting that grief must be expressed quietly and discreetly. Mourning practices such as tearing hair, beating one's chest, or openly displaying sorrow in public spaces have been outlawed. Even expressions of grief, which are universal in many cultures, are now subject to regulation, supposedly in the name of modesty and social morality. Yet, many see these measures as nothing more than tools to tighten the grip of control over the population. The state, which forbids its citizens from even openly mourning their loved ones with genuine emotion, seems more intent on maintaining an image of order and discipline than respecting individual human experience. All of these restrictions and measures culminate in a picture of a country where freedom of expression, religious practice, and personal celebration are systematically curtailed. This is a land of ancient beauty, rich culture, and striking contrasts, where tradition and modern authoritarianism coexist in a complex, often bewildering tapestry. The regime's approach to governance and social control is difficult to understand through simple explanation, as it defies conventional logic and norms. It is a country that, despite its historical and cultural wealth, is increasingly characterized by rigidity and suppression, where the very act of mourning or celebrating is scrutinized and regulated. I hope you found today's story insightful and thought-provoking. If this narrative resonated with you, please take a moment to reflect on the importance of awareness and understanding of such realities. I'm quite certain that you'll find this content engaging and enjoyable. If you have a moment, please consider sharing your thoughts and leaving a comment below. Your feedback is truly appreciated. We're also curious to know, if you could choose any country in the world, which one would you like us to explore in our upcoming videos? Your suggestions help us decide our next destination and tailor our content to your interests. Once again, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. We look forward to connecting with you again soon in our next exciting episode.